Okay, Donald Trump's first trip to Europe was a train wreck, totally disastrous speech about NATO in Brussels, that embarrassing trip to Israel where he canceled a speech to avoid being heckled. And I know that Israel is not part of Europe, but it was part of that same trip that he made. His comically ludicrous visit with Pope Francis in the Vatican, reminiscent of a scene from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Well, Trump is back in Europe. He arrived in Poland yesterday. He will ultimately head to Germany for the G20 meeting, should be comedy gold. And this time, he is not leaving things to chance. He actually benefited today from the classic authoritarian tactic of having supporters and friendly crowds bust in. Now, Trump didn't do this himself, right? I want to be pretty clear about this. Poland has a relatively right-wing government, and they came up with this brilliant plan to give a really warm reception to Donald Trump, which is they had each member of their current ruling party across the country find 50 people from their districts to get on a bus and come in to welcome Donald Trump. And it was wacky. I saw the video of it, Pat, and it was like he was getting an all-star reception, which he would not get in most countries other than maybe Russia. And people just loving it. And they called it in Poland a great patriotic picnic. This is straight out of like North Korea, Russia, Venezuela, whichever authoritarian playbook you want to look at. It's amazing that this is the type of stuff that special snowflake Trump is having people set up for him around the world.
Yeah, so I know that the Polish government set this up, but I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Donald Trump was involved in some way, because when he announced his candidacy for president, the supporters there were paid $50 a piece. And then in his first news conference, once he became president, he filled the room with aides to cheer him on and jeer the media.
Oh, there's no doubt that this is a tactic that Trump has used in the past. And it's also a tactic that mirrors what was adopted when Poland was a member of the Soviet bloc and the Communist Party would bus basically friendly crowds to Warsaw to greet dignitaries from Moscow. It's projection, partially because of what Pat pointed out, which is that Trump has done this. He's hired paid actors to come and cheer for him at his presidential announcement speech and blah, blah, blah. But also because he was claiming Hillary voters were bused, I believe it was from Massachusetts to New Hampshire to vote illegally. Who knows what it was at this point. But it's been Trump all along who has called out others falsely for busing people for political purposes. And it also matters because the guy who claims to be against safe spaces and trigger warnings, there's no one more thin-skinned than Donald Trump. I mean, the guy just cannot handle anything.
Oh, and of course, it's all optics, too. It's just the people who show up at your event. It says nothing about the greater public at large and what they think about you. But I think Poland, when it comes to Europe, would be one of the countries that supports him relatively so.
Although the support of Trump, even though Poland is relatively right-wing, I believe I saw a poll yesterday that showed support of Trump is actually lower than it was for Obama. In other words, even in relatively right-wing Poland, you still had more people supporting or approving of President Obama than Donald Trump. I may be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But if I'm right, then by all means, quote me on it.
Yeah.